MarTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of MarTechTalk. I'm your host, Luke, and today we're going to be joined by two lovely panelists. And you're more than welcome to get involved as well using the chat box to the side. Please do share any questions as they come up. But before I introduce our panelists, let's set the scene for what we're discussing. This week's topic is marketing in the metaverse, innovation, experimentation, and challenges. As a pioneering space, this is a subject that's developing all the time and doing so very quickly. So we're going to start by talking about crafting experiences in metaverse spaces to engage key demographics. Then we'll move on to discuss creating new communities safely and also engaging with existing communities with any key lessons that are learned. Finally, we'll look at expected challenges for marketing in the metaverse, including safety regulations, data privacy, and legislation. But first, let's begin by welcoming our lovely panelists for this week. In no particular order, when I introduce you, can I ask you to turn on your camera and mic, please? We've got Fabio, who is the head of metaverse marketing at Gamespad. Hello, Fabio.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for joining us. And we've got Andres, MarTech data head, MIDAM at AB InBev. Hello, Andres.
Hi, thank you for having me too. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming. If you guys are ready, should we just jump straight into the news item for this week?
Sure.
Okay. We've got a story here from Cointelegraph, and it's about the launch of a Chinese government-backed metaverse platform. Now, specifically, it aims to consolidate resources of academic institutions and enterprises in China. And this isn't the only example of this scale of metaverse building. So what are your takes, guys? Fabio, can I come to you first to get us started, please?
Sure. Yeah, I think, the first step, when we always talk about the metaverse, like now I'm very used to talk about metaverse, even to people that have zero knowledge, like my family, parents, friends, and so on. It's always important to understand what is the metaverse. This is the first step versus what people expect sometimes. Because at least in my experience, I noticed that the expectation of people toward the metaverse is something like Ready Player One type of environment, so super sci-fi type of technology. While at least as per today, we are a bit far from that. Today the metaverse looks like more like a video game. And still there is some challenges in terms of adoption, because at the end of the day, you want to do marketing in a platform where there are people, because otherwise if the platform is empty, you cannot do any marketing, right? You need users. So activities, and like this one that we see in the news that we are showcasing, like many others that are coming, help probably adoption, toward this technology. Help people to get to know what it is, what to expect, how to enter the metaverse, and hence, help us that we are on the other side, as a marketer, as a companies, as businesses, to understand, what we can do, which type of marketing actions we can leverage here.
Okay, thank you. And what about yourself, Andres? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so a particular case with China where they have a very strict policy on cryptos and everything. It's really interesting to see how they are going to push their research on metaverse, and also they are trying to drive the economy through online retail, in online e-commerce to offline sales too. So basically what I'm seeing is that probably what they are going to do is to, as they have been doing for so many years, building their own ecosystem, building their own infrastructure. They have Tencent, which has, I will say that many of the biggest video games, and Riot. So they already have the companies to build the ecosystem there. So I would say that it's interesting to see how they are going to play out this in the couple of years next. And also I would say add that another big news is that Apple is also going to launch their headset soon, very soon. So I think that both of those things are going to be huge in terms of adoption. I won't say that it's going to be like having everyone an iPhone, but I would say that it's going to push forward a lot this community.
That sort of raises an interesting question, because as you say, China does its own thing, does its own platforms. It has done that in a lot of ways, but it's usually after it's been done in other areas of the world. And I wonder if that's the same with the metaverse, or if China's now head to head with America's, with Europe. How are you seeing that at the moment?
To be honest, I don't know, because China has, I would say, many more probably users in digital space than many other countries. So, and America has, on the other side, I would say that the Oculus and all the PlayStation headsets, etc. But I don't know. Probably, if we want to, I would dare to say that America has more daily active users probably on video game type spaces.
Right. So yeah, they've got that hardware advantage in homes already. Yeah. What about you, Fabio? How do you feel about that? The hardware things?
It also a bit depends on the demographic point of view, because I was also reflecting on the fact that probably for a population like China, for them it's much more easy to enter these virtual reality spaces. They are like also in Europe, for example, we are much more attached to going out, hang out with friends. It's like more a type of cultural thing, right? So jumping from being used to having coffee face to face with a friend, or having a talk, or dating as well, in reality, to doing it in a platform like it could be the metaverse. Maybe for us, for our culture, it could be a jump that is too far compared to what it could be for culture like in China and Japan, or Asia in general. This from a cultural point of view. When it comes to investments, technology, probably the two of them are on the same level, for what we are able to know as per today. On the US side, we need to be aware, of course, of Meta and all the investment that the ex-Facebook company is doing, and how they've been basically going all in into the metaverse, from the rebranding, and actually this simple episode of Facebook rebranding to Meta is when really the buzzword metaverse started to kick off, for the masses, because before you would think metaverse, okay, what is that? The movie from Steven Spielberg. And then it started, to lead to this adoption. Probably this type of news, when it comes Apple entering, the metaverse, or China and so on, this is what lead people to, let me think, let me see, what is this, a bit buzzing the curiosity of people, the average user, because at the end, we need this type of people entering the metaverse, not only Web3 natives, let's say.
Yeah, and that leads us nicely into our first point of creating these metaverse spaces to engage these key demographics, and how it's going to be very different then in Europe versus China. How are we going to go about doing that? Is it all right to carry on with you, Fabio? Do we need a break, or do you want to jump straight in?
No, I mean, like at the end, for example, metaverse, it should be about interoperability, So basically, we shouldn't think probably about a metaverse, but we should think about more metaverses, Like, we have the internet and we have more websites. So there is going to be something like each brand probably is going to have its own metaverse. As per today, we have their own websites. Then, of course, each metaverse will be probably created according to what we were saying before, the target users, the demographics, and so on. And for us, the possibility to jump from one to the other, it should be as easy as going from, one website to the other as well. Of course, with the due changes, it could be in terms of language and so on. So this is also something that probably is going to happen. Then, of course, there might be the main metaverse, as today we have, Meta, Instagram, in Web 2, something like that in Web 3. As per today, we don't have that yet. So the race is still open, like this race to the moon, let's say. But it will be interesting to see how it will develop.
Yeah, it sounds very different in terms of, like you said, about the kind of metaverse being created around the target audience. So at the moment, then it sounds like it's not about sort of drawing in new markets into that space. It will be about going after specific targets initially, anyway.
Yeah, I believe so. Especially at the moment, it's easier if you think about it, targeting, for example, gamers, because for them, playing a video game or entering the metaverse probably it wouldn't be such jump, something too strange, for example. As well, like another area, another space that could be easily targeted, it could be the sports space, because this is a space that usually helps mass adoption like it was in web 2 as well, with social medias and so on. So sports club had to understand how to use web 2 social media, for their business strategy. As well, as we were discussing some time ago, like we need to understand, wearing headsets and doing sport, is it easy or not? Probably today no, because this type of technology is very heavy, you sweat easily. So this is, as Andres was saying before, if Apple is able to launch something that is very light, you feel very comfortable, like wearing, a pair of glasses, then it could be really a game changer, and help this process.
So it's very much sort of held back by the hardware at the moment.
Yeah, hardware as well, of course. It's a mix of the thing. It's not never a separate, type of process. But at the moment, when it comes to the main technology that people are supposed to wear or use, I think it's different. Of course, in theory, you should be able to enter the metaverse from your smartphone, from your desktop, from different devices. But if we mean the full experience that is fully, a full environment type of experience, then this is another topic.
So sort of like where people could afford smartphones once upon a time, that wasn't the case for everybody, whereas now it's more pervasive.
Yeah, like the first smartphones, they were big, like like this battle probably, and now we have something very small you can put in your pocket and use it anytime. Like super expensive, now you have any price.
I would like to jump in and follow up that idea, because we should remember that it really took too many years for people like 35, 40 years old to jump in Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, social networks. So metaverse is still too young. It's still I would say, an abstract concept. You cannot own the metaverse. You don't have the only metaverse, as Fabio was saying. It's like the internet. It's too many things, and also we have too many layers right now. We have NFTs, we have virtual reality headsets. So for people to jump in should be as easy as turn on the light. They don't care what is happening behind. It's something that they usually do. And as now Facebook is the same. They just log in and they share and experience Facebook. But right now, Metaverse probably has too many layers, and we should build more experiences without so many things that just come here, experience this, forget about all these topics and all these buzzwords, but it's just an experience. So probably that is something that is really making difficult for new people to come and jump in. It's really complex probably for them.
And I know from what we said yesterday, you're working with alcohol, and obviously a lot of the community are going to be younger because of having the hardware. Has that created challenges for you then?
Yeah, also right now it's really difficult for brands to control the content that they are going to be pairing with, and also the people that is going to be there, because we cannot control. Probably there is a legislation in that country that we cannot talk to specific demographics, young people, in the case of alcohol beverage, but we cannot control that they are there. So it's really difficult for brands, and they are so afraid that they are exposing their brand to probably whatever they may have, or they be in the space.
So finding those age groups is a challenge in itself.
Yeah, totally. Also, there are no tools for brands. We cannot control. We cannot target specific demographics with the tools that we today have, probably. So it's really hard to build those small or niches audiences for specific brands.
Okay. Do you have any examples of how that works? So I remember, I don't know if this falls, I don't think this is separate, but I remember Heineken did something a little while ago where they had like virtual tokens for their non-alcoholic beer, I think it was, and it was a virtual bar. I remember something around that.
Yeah, we have explained. We have a couple of brands, for example, Budweiser, who already have a lot of experiences there, and the FIFA World Cup also have a lot of experiences. But yeah, those were very, very controlled activations that we have. We were really aware that we cannot send the message to drink alcohol. It's more about the experience. In the case of FIFA, it's about the event and sharing that experience with the people. That was the target audience, also football fans. So it was about the event, the FIFA World Cup, rather than the brand or something like that.
Oh, okay. So is that kind of how it is at the moment there, where you're jumping on real world events that are already happening and creating something alongside it? Or is it also about creating completely unique and new events? And I mean, the audience is already there otherwise, I suppose.
Yeah, at least for the brands I know, they prefer to jump in something that it's already at least controlled in some way, or they have their own set of rules, rather than exploring to build a community by itself. It's really expensive, at least from the brand point of view, because you are not opening a new channel with the consumer, so you will need a new set of skills of community managers. You will need a new set of skills of designers. So it's really difficult for brands also to invest, at least if you are not a digital native product brand, create something there, I would say.
Okay. Now I must also say hi to anyone joining us on LinkedIn, because we're on LinkedIn Live as well. If you want to post any questions, please feel free. In our channel here, we've got a comment from Thorsten saying, I read that Facebook/Meta had given up on the grand metaverse plans. What are your takes on that, guys? Is that what you're hearing? Fabio, I think you were talking about Facebook and Meta.
Yeah, no, I was trying to see because my dog is a bit
Running in.
at the moment, so I wanted to check if it was disturbing or not.
Thank you.
But if you can hear me well, I can keep going. Otherwise, I can give the word to Andres and answer later.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll let the dog have a little calm. And Andres, if you've got any Facebook Meta related stories, content, knowledge, that'd be good to address Thorsten's point there.
Yeah, at least the thing is that I don't want to say something that probably is not true, but at least for what I know, they even dismiss a lot of people that working on the Meta project. I will say that as Facebook and other big tech companies, it's not that they are saying that we are not going to work anymore on Meta. Of course, it's a winter in terms of big projects from those companies to launch. But I would say that they probably are focusing what will work, how to build again the value proposition, and figure out what is going to work for next years, rather than being the biggest project in their mind right now.
Right. Okay. So sort of, putting less effort into it, but it's still there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you want to add anything, Fabio?
Yeah, no, I believe that one problem is that, as we were saying before, Meta went really all in into this metaverse topic with a lot of investments. At the same time, the macroeconomic scenario is not the best in general. They lost a lot in revenue, so their results weren't also that sexy. And at the same time, we had a new buzzword that came to the market, like before it was metaverse or NFTs, and in general now is again the moment of AI, artificial intelligence. So they also switched a bit the attention to artificial intelligence, like many other companies are doing right now. which anyway I wouldn't say is a bad thing, because I believe that anyway this correlation between metaverse and AI was supposed to happen, because if you think about that, it's something that can really help the development of such type of environment, both in the creation of the assets themselves, but also in the fact that you can have, some sort of avatars that are simply AI animated. And I believe we had also recently a sample from Nvidia, when the CEO made recently, it was very popular on all social media, this speech, when there was a character from the video game that was able to talk by just, by being animated from AI. So probably now there is this lack of attention. Not only Meta is sort of leaving the metaverse, also Disney is sort of switching the plans and so on. But because it depends also on macroeconomic scenario, people attention that is going somewhere else. So it's a bit of different factors. I still believe that metaverse is supposed to happen. Maybe it got a bit a stop at the moment. But at the same time, it's always a old story. If you keep building when people attention is somewhere else and then it comes back, you are ready. If you wait for the moment that everyone is talking about it, you just miss the train.
Yeah, I mean, that takes us into our next point about creating new communities safely and engaging with existing communities, and the lessons that go with that. I know yesterday, Fabio, you were talking about in our rehearsal about October 22. I think there was a sort of from scratch launches, and you had Twitter and Discord and all that sort of stuff. So is that happening less now, or are people sort of what's happening now?
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider that already the Web3 space, NFT space, is a subcategory itself. So it's a pretty much a niche in which also people attention can easily switch to other topics. Like at the moment, for example, everyone is talking about meme coins and stuff like that. So even in the NFT community themselves, they only talk about meme coins, Pepe, and so on. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but basically there is not much more attention on NFTs that somehow are a technology that are very close to the metaverse itself, no? Because you can buy digital assets between the metaverse, like Lens, for example, in the form of an NFT that basically entitles you of being totally an owner of your digital asset, whether it's a land or not. So let's say when we started with Elsewheres back in October, we weren't yet in this phase, and it was a bit easier to build the community. Right now, to keep it up is a bit harder, I have to say. So if we will start right now from scratch, it will be probably 10 times harder, because once again, it really depends on where the people attention is going according to the moment.
Yeah, I really liked you mentioned something about sports stadiums, sort of creating virtual ones.
Yeah, this is it connects with what we were saying before, that sport can be this type of area that leads to mass adoption, because of course sport fans are everywhere and globally. And a sample about the stadium is about Manchester City, that now of course everyone knows because it's about to play the Champions League final and so on. They are one of their best moments. They won a lot of trophies basically this season. They are also building their probably the first stadium in the metaverse. So basically, it's a replica of the 88 Stadium in the metaverse. So the same thing, just digital. And why they did that? Because basically they realized that a club like Manchester City has a lot of fans globally. Not all of them have the possibility to travel to Manchester to watch the game live. They wanted to give them something that it was in the middle between watching the game on the TV or on other devices and being present at the stadium. This is now possible thanks to technologies like image recognition, skeleton analysis, to basically instantly replicate the movements of the player on the pitch into this digital space. So it's pretty much basically like playing FIFA and being in the middle of the pitch, if you like, because this is another plus, that you don't need to necessarily watch the game on a digital bench. You can do it in your favorite corner of the stadium next to the players and so on. Of course, it will never be the same as watching it live, but at the same time you can experience something that is slightly different, and from some angles could be better, because it's also true that in real life you could never watch the game from the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, and the idea of bringing these international fans into one virtual stadium is very powerful. But I must mention that Thorsten has said Ahem bought a lot of trophies rather than one. So as an Arsenal fan, I had to read that one out.
Then yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, so this is, that's both short term because it's at an event, and it's also long term because people can come back to it. And I know yesterday, Andres, you were talking about this difference in short term and long term.
Yeah. Well, of course, right now I would say that many of when you read on Adweek, on those kind of places that X brand launched the new metaverse experience for Y, it's going to be a short-term event. It probably is going to happen only once, maybe 2 weeks, and then people start leaving that place in the past. So right now, I would say that that's a big problem, at least from the marketing standpoint, that they are planning just a short-term event. So probably they have many short-term events during 1 year. But I think that if they start thinking ahead, that probably the consumers are not going to engage any longer with your website. So you need to build something better. They are going to start engaging right now with this. I would say with using ChatGPT, all the influencers can create their like assistant, and you pay subscription to talk with that YouTuber or that influencer. So they are going to start engaging with that, with text, with message. So how your brand is going to be prepared for that kind of interaction with consumer, that you is no longer buttons and pictures in a grid in a website. So I would say that metaverse is going to open a lot of different ways to engage with consumers, and brands need to start thinking how they are going to be prepared for that moment, where a website is any or just a social media fan page isn't any more like the go-to place for consumers. And I like when I read in the chat that when Guardian said is dead, probably it's not. And of course, Metaverse has millions and millions of people, daily active users. So it's not at all dead. It's something to take a look. Probably the people that are already using or are there is already entering the 20s, maybe. So they are active consumer right now. And probably it's going to be in 5 years the most important niche for you.
Yeah, and this idea of bringing kind of your Instagram world and your metaverse together, it's an interesting one because of we've seen maybe more with Twitter, but the sort of data privacy legislation, safety regulations, it's a very much a developing process, and we're deep into it now, and it's not been decided. There's not laws haven't changed that much, which brings us on to our next point of the challenges of marketing in a metaverse where legislation isn't there and it hasn't been built yet. I wonder if maybe that's good in some ways, maybe it's helpful to start off, maybe it's challenging. I don't know if I could pass over to you, Fabio, on that.
But of course, it's a huge challenge because, as you said, we don't know what to expect from this point of view, and we are starting to see something that is going on around cryptos, and it's also retrospective, meaning that people, for example, at least in Italy or several Europe countries, are supposed to pay taxes backwards, also on their revenues and so on. So like someone that was investing in cryptos 3 years ago couldn't expect any of that, so you act somehow today, and maybe in 5 years time they are gonna tell you, look, everything you did back then is wrong and you are supposed to pay for that. So of course this is is a barrier, it doesn't help. When you are ready, you are in an environment that is not the most easy, and at the same time, probably as we were discussing before with Andres, when it's about demographics, when it's about target, you really don't know who is gonna be behind that avatar. If it's a kid or not, like, so there is going to be a lot of challenges, much more than what we experience in Web 2. Like there was this time that, you had social medias at the beginning, everyone could go in and so on, make the profile, but you wouldn't know who is behind, how do you treat harassment, how you do treat bullying, and so on. And we are going to have the exact same thing in Web3, in metaverse, and probably to an extended level.
Sure. I mean, I'll come to you next, Andres, but it made me think, like, now with cookies changing and the landscape changing in Web 2.0, is that a good thing for Web 3.0? Because everyone in Web 2.0 is on unsteady kind of footing. Is it a time to make the transition,
I mean, is it time? But like what it looks hard is, like, I understand it when I'm talking to really average users, like could be even my dad, my parents. Until it's not really crystal clear or super easy to create a wallet. Like as per today, it could be creating a bank account, let's say. That is not even super easy yet. But anyway, until this experience is really hard, even for young generation, even for my friends at my same age, it's not really immediate what you have to do to buy cryptos, to buy an NFT that are really the base. Like the metaverse comes later, in most of the cases. So it really, I think it comes to an education point of view, probably what we need, and this could be something that could also help adoption, like having these topics discussed at the schools, at the universities, starting to have maybe some universities using metaverses platforms to have classes instead of Zoom, because at the same time, you are able to host many more people. You have a different type of experience. Maybe it's even more engaging, on probably on Zoom calls or stuff like that. You can easily get bored or distracted. Instead, with an full immersion type of experience, it can even be better for the student as well. So combining these topics together, it could be a win-win for the users and for the platforms as well.
Okay, thanks. I've got another question from Thorsten, but we'll come back to you, Thorsten, in a second. I'm just going to get Andres' take on that. That's okay, Andres.
Regarding the cookies, okay, I would say that even if there are so many companies that today promise that it's a cookieless tool for measure the consumers, I think it's really difficult right now to, at least in Web 2, it's really difficult to move to a cookieless world. So it's really difficult there. Imagine in the metaverse, I think it's really, and actually it's a great opportunity for a startup to build something to track consumers, have this ID, and sell the behavior of consumers to brands so they can target. So I think that they need to build still in those spaces, and probably places like Decentraland, companies like Launchbolt, probably they are already thinking that building how we are going to measure, track, and sell this data to, or this information to brands, and so they can market audiences. But I still think that it's really difficult to imagine a world without cookies for 90% of the marketeers.
Yeah, strange times ahead. But on the matter of sort of data privacy and legislation and safety regulations, I mean, where you are with selling alcohol, are you seeing stuff appearing in that space, or is it still kind of real world rules applying?
It's really difficult because not even at least I would say in my experience that even for cryptos, it's really difficult for companies because they lack of the I don't know how to say, probably it's the legal or the financial structure inside the company to sell and buy cryptos in terms of financials. So they still are trying to figure out how we are going to sell our products through cryptos, but how we are going to be taxed, how are going to have the money reported in for account matters. So now thinking about legislation and the countries that have this kind of spaces and moving forward, like I remember probably El Salvador, who the coin is based on crypto. So it's very challenging for companies. It's really difficult to figure out and have like an horizontal point of view and say, as a company, this is our position, this is how we are going to operate. So no, the answer is no. I think it's really difficult right now to have a common ground everyone.
Yes, it's finding people that want to commit, companies that want to commit. So like El Salvador's, they're all in then, really.
Yeah.
And then it's just waiting for people to hopefully follow.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, Thorsten has given a question here. Thank you, Thorsten. Oh, and also I said earlier the real world, and I understand that that's not right. I should say away from keyboard. Sorry. Does the panel think that the attention of lawmakers on emerging AI is misplaced, and some of the risks within the metaverse are being overlooked? So AI, we did touch on that a little bit at the start there. I think you did there, Fabio. Can we come back to you on that, please?
All right. If I mean, it's like about the interception of AI and law topics and how it can impact on the metaverse, right?
Exactly that. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, AI as well. I mean, has been around for longer than the metaverse, even though for many years it was like sort of an underdog sleeping, and then suddenly it woke up, and now everyone is talking about it. But like for example, I remember when it comes to ChatGPT, simple sample. I think Italy for a period of time it was the only country that banned ChatGPT because I don't know, they weren't sure what is it, how it can work, which effects can have. Because at the same time, if you think about it can have such a huge impact on education, on how students conduct research or write an essay. Probably even larger than I remember. Like we are sort of I don't know, our generation more or less is this we started to use internet at school. Now before maybe our parents will just research on books, and libraries and so on. So we had this type of jump from that to this, that is sort of changed everything. And now it is the sort of same thing, but still you don't know how to address that. Also, there are every day new cases. Like this morning I was reading about a lawyer that was working using ChatGPT on a case court. And basically, it happened that these cases that ChatGPT mentioned in the research, let's say, they weren't really existing. So now this guy is having a lot of issues because he made this work using ChatGPT. He got discovered, and basically, like now he will have huge problems for the career itself. And this can happen to any of us because maybe you even don't think about it. You say, okay, let me use this AI tool because it can make my life easier, but still there are not regulation on how, when, who could use it, in which moment. And we even don't know if this information we get sometimes are realistic or not.
Yeah, great analogy, moving from some books to the internet, and in the same way moving into AI. It's like you checking and being, you couldn't have been caught out with the books because you couldn't go online and check if that was plagiarism. It was more difficult then, whereas now I guess, the legislation's going to become...
I mean, yeah, the issue is that maybe you think that every information you got is true. You don't double check. So the problem it could be for the lawyer, but it could be for the businessman, it could be for the student, because you end up writing an essay from, I don't know, about Shakespeare, and you write that Shakespeare was from Australia. I don't know, like, something like that, so because you don't double check, because you don't know, you didn't study. And who is able to say, like you should rely on ChatGPT 100% or not? So this is the one takeaway, probably.
Yeah, thank you. How about you, Andres? How's your outlook on AI and the metaverse?
Yeah, I think that I like in the question the word overlook, and I think that my biggest concern right now is that people is going to start engaging with this tool. Right now with Facebook, people consume content and they reaffirm misinformation or maybe they believe in reptilians and etc. Now imagine with that tool designed to tell you exactly what you want to hear. It's going to be much powerful to convince you about other realities and other another things that's not real, it's not happening, it's not even in our world. So that tool is designed specifically to tell you what you want to receive. So I think that now more than ever with these tools, if it's massive, common sense is going to be the most demanded skill, I would say, or at least for our kids should be to develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Common sense is something you put on your job application now.
Yeah.
Well, the positive thing of metaverse and AI is what we were saying before in creating the environments, because you have a possibility to continuously keep creating, probably even super personalized environments from design point of view, and having avatars then, or I don't know, let's say these people that are supposed to live in the metaverse that are not only real users, but also AI avatars, which also, again, could be bad and good. But if you think about that, then these AI avatars could be able to interact between themselves. And then we don't know what could come up out of this conversation that they might have. Maybe they will create a plan to destroy humanity or to save it, But, if you want to be really extreme, but why not? This could be really, really happening.
Yeah, and that's where it's going in an opening direction, isn't it? Whether that's good or bad is still open.
We don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've run out of time pretty much now, guys. But we like to end on a little quick question where it's just sort of a yes or no answer. And I'm gonna bring it back to hardware because I think that's something that's happening right now that you both mentioned as a big part that could change the way the metaverse is, the speed at which it's growing. So I'm going to ask what you think. Will Apple launch a metaverse-focused AR/VR headset this year? Yes or no? Fabio?
Yes.
Yeah. And Andres?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Very certain. I like that.
Yeah.
This is the year.
Yeah, let's keep finger crossed, but could be.
Could be. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us, both of you, Fabio and Andres. It's been lovely having you on. And thanks to all our wonderful panelists. All our wonderful guests have been joining us and any questions you've offered. Join us next week on Tuesday the 6th at 3 p.m. BST, where the subject will be the role of the MarTech leader. Until then, have a great week and goodbye for now.